Very quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made.
The United States had maintained a long-held position of strategic ambiguity when it came to Taiwan by both recognizing China's claim to it while also maintaining a tacit commitment to defending it. Experts largely disagree about the likelihood and timing of a Chinese invasion, with the top US military commander in the Indo-Pacific warning that invasion is imminent, while others interpreting President Xi Jinping's 2017 Party Congress report as setting a deadline for reunification by 2049. In terms of the history of Taiwan and China, Taiwan was ruled by a rotating cast of actors until Japan acquired the island as a colony in 1895 following the completion of the Sino-Japanese War. In the midst of the Second World War, the US and Great Britain signed the Cairo Agreement, which stipulated that all of Japan's territorial conquests from China would be returned to Beijing. However, in its aftermath, a civil war broke out in China, and the then Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek was exiled from the mainland by Mao Zedong's Communist Army. Chiang and his government subsequently fled to Taiwan in 1949 and dominated the island's politics despite accounting for under 20% of the population. For years, Chiang and his successors established what was essentially a dictatorship in Taiwan until 1999 when it elected Chen Shui-bian as president. As early as the 1980s, China had put forward a formula for governance known as one country, two systems, under which Taiwan would be given autonomy if it accepted Chinese reunification. Taiwan rejected that offer but did relax rules on visits and investments from China, which stabilized relations between the two. However, Chen, the first native Taiwanese president, marked a vast divergence from the status quo. Chen had openly backed independence, and his election sparked so much fear that in 2004, China passed an anti-secession law, stating that it reserved the right to use non-peaceful means against Taiwan if it attempted to secede from the mainland. In 2016, Taiwan elected Tsai Ing-wen as president, who officially declared her plans to establish independence from China. Tensions escalated after that, and in 2020, Chinese President Xi Jinping ordered his military forces to prepare for war in Taiwan, but seemingly backtracked his intent a year later by speaking of a peaceful reunification. Although the US initially backed Taiwanese independence, in 1972, President Richard Nixon changed course by signing the Shanghai Communique. In it, the US affirmed that Taiwan was a province of China and that relations between the two operated on a one country, two systems basis. However, despite establishing formal ties with China, the US later signed the Taiwan Relations Act, which reaffirmed Washington's commitment to Taiwanese security while maintaining strategic ambiguity on whether it would intervene in the event of a military attack. Despite the lack of formal ties, the US has long maintained good relations with Taiwan and has pledged to supply the island with defensive weapons, stressing that any attack by China would provoke grave concerns in Washington. As for the rest of the international community, only 15 states maintain official diplomatic ties with Taiwan, and no government maintains formal ties with both Taiwan and China. Taiwan also lacks a seat at the United Nations and has been excluded from a number of international institutions and partnerships at the behest of Beijing. Firstly, it's important to note that even if China successfully invades Taiwan, it might struggle to occupy it. Keeping that aside, the ramifications of a Chinese invasion would be profound, with its impact being felt on the global economy, regional stability, and the shape of the global world order. Starting with the economy, Taiwan is the world's leading producer of semiconductor chips. These chips are found in most electronics ranging from smartphones, vehicles, and to weapon systems. Companies in Taiwan were responsible for more than 60% of the revenue generated from semiconductor manufacturers in 2020 and account for nearly 90% of the production of small advanced microchips. According to an analysis for the US Air Force Office, if China conquered Taiwan, it would control nearly 80% of global semiconductor production, keeping its domestic capabilities in mind. China's dominance would also have massive implications for regional powers like India, Japan, and Korea. Asian powers have largely integrated with China economically under the premise of internal balancing. The theory posits that regional nations can facilitate the rise of China and benefit from the same only if that rise is limited by competing nations. If China were to assert its influence across Asia unchecked, its upwards trajectory may skyrocket. This in turn would pose massive security concerns for the likes of Japan and for India. Lastly, a Chinese invasion would potentially end the era of US military dominance. US Representative Mike Gallagher writes that if the United States fails to stand with its democratic allies when they are threatened by an authoritarian adversary, then it will seriously undermine its own credibility and influence, leading to the end of America's superpower status and the corresponding guarantees of prosperity, freedom, and human rights that have come with it.